In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down how you can read basketball play diagrams. So whether you're a basketball player at a timeout trying to figure out what your coach is trying to say and do, or if you're a coach just starting to learn how to basically coach basketball, this video is for you. So let's get down, let's check this out. But if you are a basketball coach looking to run a simple offense, make sure to go check out my complete guide to the 5-out offense down in the description below. Okay, so first off, what are some of the most common things that you see? Well, in a play diagram, you will see an arrow, a straight line arrow, or sometimes maybe it might be curved. That's basically a player moving without the ball. So for example, in the 5-out that we see here, if we had player 3 as an example cut towards the rim, it would look similar to this because he doesn't have the basketball and it's just a solid line with an arrow, and he would be then of course moving in that direction. However, what about a squiggly line like this with an arrow? What does that mean? Well, that's a player with the basketball. So for example, let's say player 1 here needs to move to this location. We would then draw that line to be like this. Some play diagram tools online may make it a little bit more organized and neater than my squiggly line, but that's just a freehand squiggly line, and that just means that somebody is moving with the basketball. Now, me personally, in game, I'm not going to be making a squiggly line like this. That just takes too long. You already know who has the basketball. Usually, I would draw it like this if I am in game, and I would just say he's moving with the ball there. Next is a dotted line. So, for example, a dotted line like this is when you are passing the ball. So, for example, in the 5-out pass and cut, I would then draw player 1 passing to player 2 and then cutting to the rim, which basically means that player 1 is passing to player 2 and then he is cutting towards the rim. At that time, player 2 needs to be looking at player 1 as an opportunity or an option to pass the ball to. Now, because this is a 5-out pass and cut, we would then have player 3 fill the point and player 5 fill the wing. Player 1 would then fill out, and now this may look complicated, but what this is basically saying, this diagram itself, is player 1 has passed to player 2, player 1 is cut to the rim and he's going to sit there for a second, player 3 is going to fill the point, player 5 is going to fill the wing, and if player 1 doesn't get that ball, he's going to fill out to the far corner. Now this may seem really simple, but there is also screens involved in basketball. So for example, if player 3 set a screen for player 2 and player 2 used that screen, we would want to diagram this to explain it better. So for example, player 3, if he was to set a screen for player 2, this is what a screen would look like. Basically, it's a straight line with another straight line on the end, and what that basically means is it's a screen for player 2. We would then diagram that screen, and then let's say we want player 2 to use that screen. We would then diagram it to be like this. Now that's myself, but really there would be a squiggly line there. So in reality, it would be a screen and then a squiggly line because player 2 would be moving with the ball. And what this is basically saying is player 3 is going to move there, player 2 is going to move there, and usually I would have another line coming off of that screen because that means it's going to be a screen and roll to the basket, and then we would have player 2 passing to player 3, or at least we would be hoping that player 3 would be wide open. Now you can set screens for other players on the court. It doesn't always have to be for the ball handler, so we could have player 4 setting a screen for player 5. Player 5 would then be using that screen and cutting towards the rim. And then player 2 could pass the ball to player 5 for that layup. Now there's also a thing called a dribble handoff where player 2 would then dribble the ball towards another player and set a screen. Now he's setting the screen with the ball, which means that player 3 is going to then get that ball and then start dribbling out towards that side. How this would be diagrammed would be player 2 dribbles with the ball and sets that screen, and then player 3 gets that ball. We would then put an arrow. He would receive that ball, and then we would have him dribbling off in that direction, and potentially player 2 then rolling towards the rim. And then there would be a secondary page where we would set up that pass to player 2 for that potential layup. And of course, because this is 5 out, player 1 and 5 would then fill up. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be the most difficult play make or play breakdown ever, but what this is basically teaching is the basics of how to draw plays. Here's an example of what I would do in game if I was trying to teach my team or tell my players to run a certain play. Obviously, in game, we're not going to be having these cool movable players on an iPad unless you're using your iPad. I personally don't. I use a clipboard. But how I would normally be setting up a play, as an example, let's say we have a 5 out, and let's say this man has the ball. Normally, I would be putting the player's first initial on the clipboard, and at that point, let's say we have Armin here, we have Andrew here, we have David, and then let's say we have Jude as well as Jimmy. This is how I would normally be setting up the play on the clipboard because I'm using the letters of their name. I would then say, okay, I want to have Andrew set a screen down and Jude set a screen down for Jimmy and David. Now, what I would like to see is David to cut towards the paint, while Jimmy, I would like you to move up towards the wing. Armin, you're going to have the option for both of these players, and I want you to really look at David as the number 1 option because he's going to be in the key. He's very good at finishing at the rim, while Jimmy is going to be a very good three-point shooter. He's kind of a good backup option. Now, and then I would erase the lines for some of the scribbles that I would have had. And then I would have said, okay, now, once you guys get to where you are, David, I want you to fill out to this far side if you don't get that ball and if Jimmy gets that ball. Jimmy, I want you to look for that 3 or look at Armin cutting towards the rim after he passes you that ball. Now, I hope that with the beginning tutorial of what these different lines mean, and of course, with that demonstration, I hope that it's really helped you understand how to draw up a play diagram. If it has, hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys again next time.